2 years ago, when I first saw Japanese-American artist Makoto Fujimura's paintings, I thought the paintings were very Japanese, very gracious and profoundly silent. During Makoto's revisit to Taipei in September for his third exhibition on the island, we spent hours together for this very special interview. And he pointed out specifically this exhibition was made in memory of his father, who sadly passed away earlier in March, and who has such incredible influence on Makoto and his art.
What is the theme of this exhibition this time? I know this is your third exhibition in Taipei, right?
Right. So I've been working on a series of paintings based on the theme of silence and beauty. That is also the title of my book that came out last year. But it also has to do with my father's memory. He was doing in acoustics and speech and hearing scientist as a pioneer in acoustics sciences, and it's interesting that silence and sound seems contradictory or paradoxical, but they are related. So I did a series of paintings to honor him, but also to honor the generation of people who paved the way for our culture and research and sciences. So these paintings have a vast, multiple vantage points.
Your father passed away this year?
Yeah, he passed away in March, and this painting was done right after he passed away. There's a sense of that emotion still. I call this painting silence birth. Death can mean every ending is a new beginning, legacy that is being passed on, but more importantly, generative reality can open up if you are willing to journey there, especially through creativity and imagination. So I dedicate my work to that reality and principle.
I know you use the technique so-called Nihonga, right? Please explain to us about that.
I grew up in that environment, caring for culture, which is one of my books. It's culture care, but caring for culture was naturally part of, I think, my aesthetic, my being. More and more I realized that I had to go back to Japan to understand myself, my identity in the context of Japanese history and aesthetic. And I ended up 6.5 years studying under masters of Nihonga, notably Matazo Kayama. Nihonga is using minerals and gold and silver, traditional materials. I think the traditional aesthetic and view was what drew me to Japan. This became a theme to bridge between 17th century Japanese aesthetic especially of Senno Rikyu, the tea master. I am deeply influenced by Rikyu, but to bring that into 21st century. So that's part of my relationship with Nihonga. Another part is the materials themselves and the whole ecosystem of artisans that is connected with Nihonga tradition. My sensibilities fit perfectly the slowness of the craft process of Nihonga, layering sometimes over nearly 100 times just to get it started. Takes a long time to get the darkness right, and I think the Japanese concept of time, which is ma, it's space in between or time in between. My art is in between spaces, in between time, and that's what Nihonga allows me to get to.
Your art is not just the East meets the West. There's something else more than that, right?
Yeah. It's hard to categorize my art because anytime you try to say, well, is it Nihonga, is it contemporary art, is it this, is it that, is it painting? They tend to morph into something else. People wonder if what I'm doing is reviving the 17th century craft and art, which I am. Is it something that is 21st century, new? I certainly hope it is. That is present in the moment that we're in, but I don't know what the word is there. If it's not bicultural, it's not just a melding of the two. Yeah.
I remember watching one of the videos about you. Your professor
Yes, that's right.
said that your art changed so much after you became Christian.
Yeah, I was astonished.
Did you realize that?
Well, I knew that to be the case, but for him to say that on camera was astonishing to me because I really felt like I found my voice after I discovered my faith. And he saw that and he recognized something in that, and that was really amazing to hear, and I was grateful. He's never said that to me personally.
I'm just curious how you became Christian.
In my case, it happens to coincide with my spiritual awakening. I felt like my imagination had began to grasp something that my rational side wasn't willing to acknowledge. And it took me several years of creating and making art. Then it turns out that my faith had began to take over my heart at that point, and in fact, not only I was a Christian, but as a follower of Christ, I had a new direction and new mission to see my art, see my role, see my journey in that light. Yeah.
Can you imagine yourself now doing art without your faith? Because you just mentioned you're trying to find out the authentic you as regarding the others.
Yeah. So part of theology that I ascribe to would tell me that this God of the universe is an artist, and so like there's no part of my life that wasn't covered by grace. So in a sense, even if I wasn't aware of that, it still belongs ultimately to God. Now that I'm aware of that, now that puts a different spin on everything that I do, and missionary, there's purposefulness, even suffering, even the dark times, even trials, is meaningful. That artist leading the way to create a dialogue in society that can liberate people from whatever they're struggling with.
This is amazing painting.
Thank you.
Please tell us what it is about.
Right, so this...
It's your first painting after your father
Yeah, my father passed away. I came
right?
back to the studio in Pasadena, and I had started this work. Gilding gold is very meditative because you're going one by hand, these grids. And takes a while, but it's a good way for me to pray. And so I'm doing that, and then I also realized that I wanted to create something that is being worn away or passing away, but that it's generative, and so the title, Silence Birth, is very much about my father's death, but I'm sure what he would have wanted was that it would initiate a new birth of some kind, And so me painting this painting was one of the ways to honor his life.
This is a very special painting.
Yeah. It is.
Tell us about the pigment you use. I heard there's something very unusual.
It's done with oyster shell, gofen,
And
it's
aged.
Aged, fermented, purified, refined oyster shell. It's a particular technique in Nihonga. You're grinding up oyster shell and you're hitting it against the plate 100 times. Literally, it's called hyakutataki, which means to hit it against. Very difficult to create this luminosity and transparency. You know, the title that connects silence with light, you know, after my father's passing, and I wanted to capture his spirit, you know, that is free and can see light, you know, or better way of putting it is can hear light. You know, at the deepest level of human experience, sound and sight comes together, and so can we hear light? That's the question that this work poses.
Mako, the story you told us about the paper you used was very, very interesting.
Yes,
For example, this painting used the kind of paper, right?
Right. This is a highly pure mulberry paper made in Japan, and it's not something you can purchase. You have to know the paper maker who is still practicing this art of creating very traditionally pure mulberry paper. This paper happens to be mixed with cherry bark, so it has this pinkish color to it. I thought it would be appropriate to use this image on this paper as a way to honor the tradition. So I painted it, I sent it to the silk master, and he there's no communication. Again, there's a silent communication because there's an implicit trust between the person who mounts your work. He's been following my work for over 30 years. He knows about my work, maybe even better than I do. It's a beautiful, mysterious flower that comes up in April or May in New Jersey, and consider what this flower is, how it's raised. It's very native to American soil. I'm interested in that, you know.
Gardening
as well.
Wow.
It's part of culture chaos.
You are a lot of things.
Yeah, well,
you paint, you write.
Well, but Nihonga is all, you know, everything, right? It's about nature and culture, and I think it's, you know, this slow food movement that we have today is very connected to what I call slow art. You know, I think it's all about recognizing that we're all part of a greater ecosystem that sustains us, and beauty is part of that.
Just as Makoto himself said, almost apologetically, that he did not know how to explain himself or his art properly. He could be more Japanese than artists in today's Japan. He could also be more American than American artists are. No matter what, I'm pretty sure that Makoto will continue to bring us beauty and silence that no one else on this planet could ever achieve but Makoto himself.